Audiobooks and beyond. The Quiet House by Marcus Thorne. My name is Arthur, and I am, by nature, a quiet man. I live in a quiet neighborhood, in a quiet house, on a quiet street. So when my new neighbor moved in, I barely noticed. He was a tall, gaunt man with a slight stoop, and he moved with a profound silence that was almost unnerving. I saw him twice, once when he was unlocking his front door, and once when he was getting the mail. Other than that, the house next door was a black hole of stillness. The first oddity was a few weeks later. I was sitting on my porch, enjoying the evening breeze, when a woman pulled up to the neighbor's house. She was young, vibrant, and carried a large bouquet of flowers, her face lit with a nervous but excited smile. She knocked, the door opened a crack, and she slipped inside. I thought nothing of it. It was a new neighbor, after all. Maybe it was a welcome home gift. I waited for her to leave, but she never did. Hours went by. I eventually went inside, but a part of my mind, that quiet, curious part, kept waiting for her to reappear. A few days later, another visitor. This time, it was a young man in a suit, carrying a briefcase. He looked like a salesman or a delivery man. He knocked, the door opened, and he, too, disappeared inside. Again, I waited. Again, he never left. My quiet, curious part of my mind was now a persistent, nagging voice. I started to wonder if I was going insane, if my brain was inventing things to fill the silence. But I knew what I had seen. I knew they went in, and they never came out. I started to keep a log. In a small black notebook, I wrote down the date, time, and a brief description of each person who entered the house. The entries grew more and more frequent. A mail carrier, a pizza delivery guy, a young couple who looked like they were on a first date. They all went in, and none of them ever came back out. The quiet house next door was a vortex, a black hole swallowing up people from my quiet street. My life, the quiet, predictable life I had built, began to crumble. I couldn't sleep. The hum of my refrigerator, the creak of my floorboards, they were no longer the sounds of a house. They were the sounds of a crime scene. I would lie awake, staring at the window, waiting for the next victim. I started to see things in the shadows, to hear things in the quiet. I would call the police, but I didn't have a case. I saw a few people go into my neighbor's house and not come out, I'd say. They would politely listen, then tell me to get some rest. I knew I had to do something. The lives of these people, these strangers, were on my hands. I decided to confront the neighbor. I walked across the lawn, my heart pounding in my chest, and knocked on the door. It was a solid, wooden door, unadorned and uninviting. It opened a crack, and I saw his face. It was a face of profound weariness, the eyes hollow and sad. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice a dry whisper. I took a deep breath. "I've been watching your house," I said. "I've seen people go in, but I've never seen anyone leave." The man's eyes widened, a flicker of something terrible passing through them. "You've been watching?" he whispered. "Yes," I said. "I've been keeping a log." He didn't say anything for a long time. He just stared at me, his hollow eyes filled with a deep, profound sadness. Then he opened the door wider, a gesture of invitation. "Come in," he said. "I'll show you what's going on." My mind screamed at me to run, to turn around and never look back. But my heart, the heart of a man who believes in justice, the heart that felt the weight of all those lost lives, commanded me to enter. I stepped inside, and the door closed behind me with a soft thud. The house was not what I expected. There was no blood, no carnage, no bodies. It was just a normal house, with a living room, a kitchen, and a staircase that led upstairs. It was immaculate, spotless, but the air was heavy with a profound, terrifying stillness, a silence that was more palpable than any sound. "What is this?" I asked, my voice a hollow whisper. "They're here," he said, his voice barely audible. "They're all here." He gestured to the wall. It was a long, unadorned wall, painted a pale yellow. There was nothing on it, but as I stared at it, I saw it. The woman with the flowers, the man in the suit, the mail carrier. They were all there, perfectly rendered, their faces still, their eyes fixed. They weren't paintings, they were frescoes. They were carved into the wall, a grotesque, horrifying tapestry of human faces, their eyes wide with a silent scream. I stumbled back, my hands over my mouth, a scream building in my throat. I looked at the man, the silent, unassuming man who had been my neighbor for months. He was standing there, his head slightly tilted, a weary sadness on his face. "They're not leaving," he said. "They can't leave. They're a part of the house now." He gestured to a small, empty patch on the wall, a blank canvas waiting for its next subject. "And you," he said, "you were watching. Now you're here. You're a part of the house now, too." He reached out a hand, and as his fingers touched my chest, I felt a wave of profound, agonizing cold. The world began to blur, to shrink. My bones felt like they were being crushed, my skin stretched thin. I screamed, but the sound was tracked, muffled, swallowed by the profound silence of the house. I was being pulled into the wall, my face contorting in a silent, final scream, my eyes widening with a terrible realization. I was not a painting. I was the paint. I was a part of the quiet house next door. Another silent face in a wall of silent screams.